Okay. Good morning, everyone. Wanted to start off by saying that America is truly blessed to have people like Dr. Peter and many hundreds of them, who have tirelessly worked. India, similarly, is also blessed. We've got people out there who work tirelessly. Some Our honorable Prime Minister has not taken a single day's leave since he's taken office. People like Dr. Swasicharan, we had previously people who actually created a rare disease policy in India, like Dr. Soumya and Dr. Madhulika, Dr. Rita, Dr. Dirja. These are people who actually did a lot of work. And similar to the US, the similarity that Indo-US rare brings is that the hard work that continues in America is also very similar to the work that's been carried out in India. I'll take about close to about 10-15 minutes to close this presentation. But before that, I just wanted I was listening to someone called Gaur Gopal Das. I don't know if you've heard him. We've got a lot of people who actually do motivational speeches and talk about spirituality. And today morning, this person was saying, and I must say that you should actually listen to these guys because they actually bring a smile on your face at times. So he says that when you're wrong, and you accept it, right? So that means you are honest, right? So he was talking about the fact that, and I was correlating this to the work that I do, which is essentially excess. And we realized that you have to be honest in what you're doing. The second thing he said is when you're not so sure, but you still, say sorry and accept it, that means you're wise. So excess also requires people to be a little bit wise in order to understand how things move. And the third thing is said that when you're absolutely right, but you still say sorry, that means you're a husband. So, so we have to also sometimes, do the right things, all the time do the right things, but also be wary of the fact that we have to be, at the right space in order to get work done. Right. So I represent HED Healthcare, and we are based out of Gurgaon. And what we essentially do is enable access to healthcare. We work on education, environment, infrastructure development, etc. The disclaimer that I'll put right up is that whatever views are expressed here are personal, my own, and this is not something that is there. But I've tried to cull together everything in a very simplified manner. Trust me, similar to Isaac, we've got people in India who can actually make things very, very tough. But the fact is, I try to make it as simple as possible for this particular audience, right? So moving forward, just to introduce ourselves, we're based in Gurgaon, India, and we operate across India or any other country as mandated by our customers. We supply products. In 22-23, we manufactured and were amongst the largest producers of cylinders. And we also supplied devices to some of the countries outside India. This year, we're developing an app-based solution of LMS, which is the learning management software, virtual lab and analytics for students. We have plans to implement this in India in 23-24. And we're also promoting an app, an AI-based technology for mass screening of people on several healthcare parameters. So this is something that we are trying to get things moving in India. Our vision is essentially to enable access to products and services by impacting policy and enabling funding. So that is something that we are, we enable this to happen. We also create infrastructure that promotes research, learning, and development, and that's the way that we essentially look at our work. Okay, so moving forward I just wanted everyone to understand India, right? So India is 1.4 billion. Everyone knows that. Right, we've got a lot of males and females below the poverty line, 37.7 and 45.3 as per the statistics from India. Knight Frank has mentioned a different figure of 169, irrespective of that, whether it's 237 or 169. The billionaires in India, we've got a lot of billionaires, right? So we've got wealth in a lot of people, and that makes India the third largest in terms of billionaires. Okay, so India also ranks 63 out of 190 in terms of the ease of doing business, and we with people at the helm of affairs in India, many of them, as I said, work tirelessly. I'm sure this number is going to go up and become a lower single digit very soon. The private healthcare in India, we have rural, about 72% treatment is actually in the private, and urban, again, 79 of them in the private. So we have infrastructure across the country. But if you see the private infrastructure, the map here shows the private infrastructure. Essentially, it is located in some geographies of India and not necessarily across the country, right? So the public infrastructure per se is all across the entire country. We're talking about government policy, regulatory programs, research, and financial control of India is actually done at the headquarters in New Delhi. And in 23, as per the economic survey, 2.1% of the GDP actually was for healthcare. And we all talked about the 11 centers of excellence in India. We've not put all 11 dots because there's some dots that actually are in the same geography. So that's where the 11 centers are actually located. And the rare disease policy is essentially being driven by these centers across India. Okay, so now an overview. Dr. Swastishan has already mentioned this, but I'll just take you through some of the highlights so that it remains because what you see is what you remember. So the thing is, this was developed in 2017. As I said, a lot of people from AIIMS, from across the country, SGPGI, and many other places actually came in and helped support the development of the Indian rare disease policy, and was finally launched in 2021. And as Dr. Swastishan had mentioned, it was 20 lakhs initially, that was for the patient, which has been increased to about 50 lakhs Indian rupees now. So that's where the Indian rare disease policy really is. And what is the aim that this policy has is essentially that it will work on lowering the incidence and prevalence of rare diseases by creating awareness, and also counseling, premarital, postmarital, preconception, postconception, screening and counseling programs. The focus would be on prevention of rare diseases. So that's the aim. How do you prevent it? That's one. And the central government would encourage and support states in the endeavor towards screening and prevention of rare diseases. So states would be the implementing partner for all these policies that the government has actually brought forward. And the prevention that we're talking about is essentially at 3 levels. The primary, which is to prevent the occurrence of the disease. Primary prevention is focus on avoiding the birth of the affected fetus. And the tertiary prevention, please don't mind those words there. It's tertiary prevention is essentially about provide medical care and rehabilitation to the RD patients at an advanced stage of the disease. So the discussions that we've had yesterday was primarily around the third bucket of tertiary prevention. But I think, the primary and secondary also play a key role in the entire policy. We talked about the funding. Initially, there were about 8. Now it's about 11 centers of excellence. And as we said, it has been increased about 50 lakhs. All right. The COEs to be provided one-time payment for setting up the screening, diagnosis, and prevention centers. Crowdfunding, as Dr. Swastishan mentioned, is also there. It is something which is a new concept and is something that people will try out going forward. And COEs can get funding from other agencies, so they could be funding that could come into these particular COEs as well. We talked about this before, which is essentially the policy description. Group 1 is those disorders for a one-time treatment. Disorders amenable to organ transplantation. So those are ones that actually fall in group 1. If patients are there in this particular category, the government will be more than happy to actually support the treatment of these patients. Group 2 is, the disease requiring long-term, lifelong treatment, having relatively lower costs of treatment, and benefit has been documented in literature. So that is something which the government will again support. That is group 2. As Dr. Swastishan mentioned. And the third one is essentially about the diseases for which definitive treatment is available, but challenges are to make optimal patient selection. So this is something that most of us are usually talking about, the LSDs and others. So that this falls into group 3, right? So essentially the policy has 3 broad areas and 3 broad groups that needs to be addressed. Now, just quickly to talk about the regulatory pathways for the investigational new drug as well as new drugs. Essentially, it takes about 12 to 18 months as per the regulations of India. There's several, I've tried to make it as simple as possible, where, the applicant actually applies for it. You have the preliminary evaluation. If there's a deficiency, it goes back. The regulatory evaluation will talk about the permission for a BE study or a permission for a CT. There will be a subject expert committee review. NOCs will be provided, and review of BE-CT report would be done. And if it's satisfactory, then on-site facility inspection may be carried out. On the other hand, there could also be review of CMC data, and if it's satisfactory and IPC compliant report, then again, there could be an on-site manufacturing site location, so-called inspection that could happen. For the clinical trials, you have category A, which is if the trials have been approved in some of the countries which has a good regulatory system, like the US, Britain, Switzerland, Australia, Canada, Germany, Japan, EU. There could be an eligibility for fast tracking of these of the new drugs. There needs to be a dual submission to the ethical committee as well. You can have discussions with the director general, with the director's office, in order to ensure that you have the right, so-called applicant or application in place. Then the process is very similar to what was before, which goes into the same, so-called way of doing things. There would be either a 45, 46, 45A or 46A that will be provided to the company that actually comes into the country. And the definitions of them are actually written there. So some key components are that, if you look at the new drugs that have been approved in India, there's a lot of work that has gone in. The government has really worked hard. In 23, as of date, it's about 24 new drugs. The numbers have been about 31 in 22 and going back 25 in 2010. So a lot of new drugs have been approved. You have, you could waive off trials, in the interest of public health. So if there is a requirement, as happened before, we talked about it before. So there could be a waiver of as well. And clinical trials may be waived off if new drugs which are approved in countries of good regulations are actually brought into the country. So there are certain do's and don'ts which are there. And if we follow those pathways, the system would be, relatively easy to maneuver. So there would be, data that needs to be shared. There would be documents that will need to be submitted. If all those are done, I'm sure the regulatory system in India will be very supportive to the introduction of new products. So the exact requirements of clinical trials may change from case to case. It'll depend on the data available and depend on the extent to which licensing authority is satisfied about its safety and its efficacy. So these are things that that needs to be made sure when we are actually applying or trying to get into India. So I'll leave with some key messages. That is, you need to describe, and especially for the sponsors, that's the companies that wants to enter, describe how the new drugs provide clinical benefits that will need to be shown, to clarify whether any associated risk outweighs the benefits of the proposed indication. It has to be assured that the product can be manufactured at assured quality and batch-to-batch consistency. Products need to be made available for free to the beneficiaries post the trial. And the authorities' processes are very transparent. You can actually see it online through the Sugam portal. Complete data, as mandated by the rules, needs to be made available. So, it's a fairly transparent system that the government has put in, and it is something that all companies would have to follow. So with that, I'll stop here. We'll be delighted to support your cause in India. And we are available here. Again, the views have been purely personal. And with that, I'll wish everyone a happy Diwali, which is coming up shortly, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.